So we're here at the American Civil War Museum in Richmond, Virginia, and we're going to start on the second floor. And they have two galleries here. One is Greenback America, which goes into the financial side of the Civil War, and this one here, Southern Ambitions. Now, everyone has different opinions about the war, and frankly, everyone's entitled to their own opinion. But just as a little disclaimer, the Southern Ambitions Museum may upset some people, it may enrage some people, but the great thing about history is it happened, regardless of your opinion or views on a certain topic. But we can take a second today and learn some new things about a topic that I personally don't know a whole lot about. So now we're about to enter the gallery for the Southern Ambitions. And here we go. And we're diving right into it. The Confederacy had ambitions to extend free trade, lower tariffs, open new markets, and grow slavery. And they're also trying to get you to immerse yourself during that time and realize if a few battles would have turned out differently, how different the world would have been if the Confederacy would have prevailed and succeeded from the Union. And here's just another little disclaimer. Some of the Confederacy's ambitions will surprise you, some will appall you. If the Confederacy prevailed, the world would have been completely different, and there's no denying that. And as you can see, we're going back to just before the Civil War and starting to go over the Confederacy's ambitions. Now, they didn't just want their own country and to succeed from the Union. They wanted to be a major player in the world. And you can see Confederate leaders stake their place in the world order on free trade and expansion of slavery to achieve the maximum production of staple crops, such as cotton. Very interesting. And now we're going to go over a famous quote made by Jefferson Davis to the Confederate Congress, and he said, "All we ask is to be left alone." Now, what he meant by that was he wanted the Confederacy to control its own economic, political, and social future rather than it be dictated by Republicans in the United States. And here's the quote. And here's a pretty cool political cartoon using a little bit of symbolism. As you can see, the hefty fellow here in the middle is England, and the two fighting brothers, that is the United States and the Confederacy. And the gentleman in the back is India, and what it's representing is England finding a new place to import its cotton from. Pretty interesting. Now, this map is a pretty cool visual and offers some insight into just how important the United States cotton trade was to the world and how the Civil War impacted economies around the world. Here is the imported cotton in 1858, and in 1864 you can see Europe was getting most of its cotton from India, Africa, and places like that, and in 1865, not much of a change. And like we touched on earlier, the Confederacy wanted to become world players, not just militarily, but economically as well. And they attempted to do this by portraying themselves as an economically and technologically advanced nation. They also had plans to expand in Arizona and New Mexico. That's just pretty interesting because I didn't know that. They also disseminated some propaganda to help form that national identity. Now we're touching on the Trenton Affair, which I had no idea happened, but apparently on November 8th, the USS San Jacinto intercepted the British ship RMS Trent and seizes James Mason and John Slidell, who were Confederate diplomats, on their way to Britain and France. I guess this was the Confederacy's attempt to try and gain allies. Luckily, cooler heads prevailed, and this incident didn't lead to a world war, which would have drastically changed history. Now here's an interesting piece. This is a pamphlet that was used by clergyman Benjamin Morgan Palmer, who was trying to justify slavery and how the Confederacy would be a mature world power. A ton of new things that I'm learning here, and this is one of them. Apparently, the Confederates had plans to lay a submarine telegraph cable through the Iberian Peninsula in Europe, through Brazil, and into the Caribbean. That's pretty interesting. And here's a map of the proposed transatlantic cable. Huh. That is crazy. And trying to play off their success in 1862, the Confederates attempted to form alliances with Brazil and Spain, which Spain still had slaves in Cuba and Puerto Rico at this time. And if you can see that bottom left paragraph, the Confederacy believed that slavery was the most economical and logical form of labor, and they viewed abolition in the Caribbean as a mistake. Now, during this time, there was also a lot of unrest throughout the world, so the Confederacy was trying to portray themselves as a stabilizing force. The Confederates saw themselves as a conservative, representative democracy in a world full of anarchy and mob rule. And down here, just going over a few of the events happening around the world. And here's some unrest in Italy. And it looks like Poland also had some civil unrest at this time. Interesting. And here's Mexico, dealing with some unrest with France's involvement. Just a very turbulent time. And here's a piece of iron plating that was manufactured right here at the Tredegar Iron Works. And they hope to line ships with this plating to help break through the Union blockades. And you can see they tested it here. And here is a Civil War sword used by cavalry and officers. And this hat here, this is pretty interesting. Apparently, this captain was killed in the New Mexico campaign by Mexicans. And here's a few more artifacts, what's left of a Confederate battle flag and a Confederate officer sword. And apparently after the war, 10 to 20,000 Confederates refused to accept defeat and established new colonies in Brazil, New Texas and Americana. I did not know that. So here, this map is just showing some of the years that slavery was abolished and just shows you how out of touch the Confederacy was. The Confederacy's vision of expanding slavery is out of touch with the rest of the world, where its use among world powers is shrinking. And this is a troubling reminder that slavery has not gone away. This is still a worldwide issue. Between 21 million and 45 million adults and children are still trapped in some form of slavery. This last sentence kind of jumped out to me as I sit here and record this on my cell phone, but at some point, slaves may be involved in the production of your cell phone, coffee, and other things that we use on a daily basis. Just kind of puts things in perspective. Just because slavery is abolished here doesn't mean that they're still not dealing with it around the world. Very sad. Now we're transitioning to the Greenback America gallery, and we're starting off by showing what it would cost to outfit a soldier in 1861 as compared to today. Pretty drastic difference if you ask me. I would have thought that today would have cost a little more, but they also have items tagged, and you can see this hat, 60 cents. It's kind of a bargain. 96 cents, 40 cents. And $2.25 for that bayonet. I'll take that thing right now. Pretty cool. And looks like here we're just comparing Wall Street in the 1860s and Wall Street today. Looks like it's changed a bit. And here, just a little brief summary about how money works and how humans have been using different objects as currency. Shells, stones, gold, paper. And that last paragraph is funny. A $20 bill is $20 because we agree it's $20 and we trust the government. And apparently during the Civil War, money was kind of a mess. As you can see in 1860, more than 1,500 banks made and controlled the banknotes in circulation. And apparently some banks had enough gold to back their notes and others didn't. So hopefully your money was in a bank that had enough gold. Unfortunate and inharmonious system of systems. Well, that's not very comforting. And during the American Civil War, the money we use now in the United States didn't exist, and hundreds of different banks printed their own paper money, which I'm sure you can imagine is very confusing. Now, this is a staggering number, but apparently the Civil War cost $2.5 million a day. Now, to put this in perspective, $100 in today's currency would be $3,000 in 1860, which is mind-boggling to me, honestly. Here's a few examples of counterfeit dollars that was used in the 1870s to back different political candidates. That's kind of weird. I'd imagine not only did these notes say positive things, I'm sure they were also used to slander opposing candidates. Interesting. So apparently in 1865, the Secret Service was created to not protect political candidates, but to combat counterfeiting. We can add that to the list of things that I've learned today. That's pretty cool. So apparently, Wall Street brokers would gamble on the progress of the Civil War. So if the Union would win a battle, more people would believe in the greenback, which was the currency of that time. It's kind of morbid. I guess kind of like how we bet on sports today, except they were gambling on the progress of the war.